Hey YouTube, this is Donald, and today I got another review. Remember my previous video where I mentioned about the ColecoVision expansion module and mentioned about the Atari, about the reason why I don't use it anymore, and mentioned about the Atari 7800? Well, this console is the reason why. So if you want to find out more about this expansion module for the ColecoVision, go back to my previous video. Because in this video we're only going to talk about the Atari 7800 itself and a whole bunch of Atari related stuff. Now anyway, this is the Atari 7800 Pro system. This is what I'm going to review today. Now, this console, here's the history of this console. Atari was planning, ever since the Atari 5200 failed, they were planning to release this console to make up for it in 1984, but due to the video game crash of 1983 and 84, it was cancelled, and after the success of the NES, in 1985, 1 year in 1986, they decided to release the Atari 7800 stateside and release the system officially. And sadly, it never caught on. And it didn't have a long lifespan as the NES or Sega Master System did, unfortunately. But it's still a good-looking game console, and it's still a good console either way. It had some potential. The saving grace on this console is that it is backwards like I mentioned on the expansion module review of the ColecoVision, the reason I don't need it anymore is because this console is backwards compatible with Atari 2600 games. I'll show you the 2600 games I'll show you the 2600 games in a minute, but note, this is not all my Atari 2600 games. I have more in the bag, but I'm sure you guys get the idea as I make more reviews. But anyway, it's got that nice silver label with a rainbow texture on it. It says here Atari 7800 Pro System. And it also has its own library of 7800 games like Pole Position 2 and a 7800 version of Centipede. It has a copyright date of 1987. While this game is made by Namco in 1982 and 1983, and in 1987 was ported on the Atari 7800. Now the Atari 7800 games come in these nice silver boxes with full color artwork. Many of the cartridges don't have full color artwork. It just has black text with black images on silver. Though this game is compatible with a trackball, so I would like to play this game with a trackball one day, as soon as I get my hands on one, of course. As you can see, there's no need for an adapter. The cartridge slot is almost identical to the Atari 2600 cartridge slot, except it's got these slots in there for the 7800 games. There's no special adapter required for this. Though some 2600 games come in these weird shapes, like this Activision cartridge I have, for example. You need to get a lot of force to put it in there. Oh, and you at least need 2 hands to pull it out. That's what I don't like about the cartridge slot, but at least I can use it without using a special adapter. Now here's the power button, here's the power button, the pause button, the game select button, and the reset button. Underneath it's got, on the front it's got two controller ports, these two difficulty switches. This one's for the one player and this one's for the second player. There's nothing exciting on the side right here. You may notice it's got rubber feet underneath. Underneath it has the serial number. Now this console was made by Atari. And on this side it's got an expansion interface. I don't know anything that uses this interface, but it's possible that Atari was planning to add some kind of expansion module for it, but I'm not sure if it was ever released. And it's also got these rubber feet to give it some traction. On the back, it's got a channel select, your VHF out, and an AC adapter cord. And when if you're gonna buy an Atari 7800, make sure that it comes with an AC adapter, because that's a unique AC adapter right there. AC adapter port right there. Those are actually hard to come by, so they're proprietary. It's got these vents, these cooling vents or something. It's got vents underneath, in the back. Anyway, and as you can see, the controller ports are identical to the Atari 2600 games. I mean, the Atari 2600 controller ports. That's what makes it backwards compatible with the 2600. So that way you can use the original joysticks that came with the 2600, or these pairs of pedal controllers. So that way you can play pedal controller games like Night Driver, Kaboom, Breakout, and Super Breakout. Let me put those away. Oh, the manual fell off. Never mind. But anyway, let me show you the 7800 controller. Now, the 7800 controller in North America or Japan would look like this, I think. It's got clicky buttons and a joystick that kind of spins like this, like a pedal, but it's kind of stiff and it kind of feels awkward, but it's got the same controller plug as the 2600. But the magazine description in the Christmas catalog said this thing has super responsive joysticks. I'm sure they realized that they knew the 5200 joysticks were faulty. So yeah, having a responsive controller can be a necessity, won't you say? This controller is responsive, but it just feels awkward to hold. Fortunately, you can use the Sega Genesis controller for the games on this thing, and standard. You can also use, not only that, but you can also use the keyboard controllers and the driving controllers for this thing, as well as the standard 2600 joysticks and these pedal controllers, like I said. And on eBay, you can also hunt down a European Atari 7800 controller, which is kind of better than this, unfortunately. Which is better than this, actually. It's got, and this controller, it's identical to the Sega Master System, now that I think about it. It's got a 1 and 2 button, kind of like a BA button. It's got a D-pad. And it's got the same controller plug as the 2600, so you can use it interchangeably on any of the Commodore computers, 2600, and the Atari home computers. You can also use third-party joysticks on this thing as well for many of the 2600, for any of the 2600 games like Winter Games. You can also play with the joystick 2600 games like Berserk, Missile Command, Asteroids, Defender, Space Invaders, and Maze Craze. Now, let's show you the connections. Now, I must admit, I'm cheating slightly because I couldn't come across its original VHF connector cable or its VHF switch box. But this will work on the 7800 that I have. Anyway, it hooks up the same way that you would hook up an Atari 2600. Now, you can buy yourself one of these things to use it on a modern television and plug it into the RF connection on your TV instead. Or if you have the VHF switch box, you can also use a different type of RF connection that uses the VHF forks that screw into the back of the TV and use that on the RF and screw it onto the RF connector. Now, this cable will work on this console, but even though it's not its original, it's kind of like a computer connection now that I think about it, but it'll work either way. Here's the AC adapter, Atari guide from AtariGuide.com. I guess this is either some kind of a remake. It says made in China. Why does Atari rely on the Chinese? I never heard of that happening. And as you can see, this is how unique the AC adapter plug looks like. It looks unique looking. There's even a PAL version of this system in Europe that includes this European gamepad rather than the joystick controller. And there's also a special controller that you can get for it that has a big joystick and it's like a box-shaped controller similar to this gamepad, but except there's versions for right-handed people or left-handed people. If it's for left-handed, the joystick will be on the right. If it's right-handed, the joystick will be on the left. And it's got the two buttons also that are big. And this thing is like a beast. You might have to Google search that because I couldn't come across those things because they are so expensive that I'm afraid I can't come across one. But this AC adapter is kind of bigger than a 2600 or Pong console AC adapter. Not as big as a ColecoVision, but it's pretty basic in today's standards. And this console is an 8-bit, and this console is 8 bits, which is rightfully so. Just so you know. It may not be as powerful as the NES these days, but it's still a good console. In conclusion, the console may not have the largest library of games as the NES, but it does have some excellent games. Even you can even use your 2600 games on this thing. So if you like Atari consoles, like Atari games, and if you want a new game console, these things are easy to come by on eBay. eBay is a perfect place to find that 7800 because they're not really high demand. And Atari 7800 games are easy to collect for today, places like eBay, because they're not really high demand. So if you like Atari games, So if you like Atari video games and if you want a new video game console, this is a console worth owning in addition to the Atari XE. Even though the games are somewhat similar to each other, but you get that this thing is kind of light. It's mostly plastic. But anyway, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and like the video, and yeah, I'll see you on the next video. This is me, signing off.